What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, for the first time, we have heard from Braden Smith about his absence away from the team as of, missing the last 5 games last year. And, for the majority of the offseason, not knowing what was going to happen. And of course, the Indianapolis Colts, when it happened, said that they weren't going to say anything. They were just going to leave it up to Braden when he's ready to say something. And Joel Erickson broke the news today in an article. We'll make sure to put the article in the description if we can, just so that way you guys can find it easier. The headline for the Twitter article was Braden Smith was fighting his own mind last season, a war of obsession he believed was for his very soul. Smith and his wife Courtney are telling their story now, the details of his diagnosis and how dark things got and the treatment that finally helped. So it's a really long article. We're not going to go through the whole thing because it literally took me about 10 minutes to read, so I'm not going to do that. But in this, basically what it came down to, for the people who don't know what the article was about, basically Braden Smith was diagnosed with OCD. And, a lot of people think, oh, well, a lot of people have OCD. And, that's not necessarily a grave thing. But the problem that you had with Braden Smith's levels is there's about 40 different things that classify you to have OCD. And Braden Smith had about almost 30 of them. And that ultimately means the more signs you show, the worse it is, because that not only determines you have it, but also determines just how much of a grip it has on you and your mentality. And in parts of it, I don't remember the exact terminology. I'll make sure to have the article up and try to see it if I can. But basically, he said it was getting to a point where it wasn't just, oh, I have to see myself do this like a million times, or else, I feel like I'm not going to do anything. It started to make him become an obsessive person, over the sense of he just felt like if he did anything wrong, then basically the wrath of God was going to come down on him. That was his mentality through a lot of different things. And he said even during the season, he was having this. And it was that perfectionism that started making him go down a rabbit hole of where his wife said that you are not the same person that you were just this last year. And basically, what continued to transpire is he said there was times I contemplated ending it, because that's what it felt like at times in my head. And so they got him diagnosed. He had to spend a month and a half getting treatment every single day for it, and went to a couple different places to get tested and to get treatment and to get therapy and all this other stuff. And he had to take a psychedelic, which was, it's some experimental psychedelic. I have no idea what it exactly is. Actually, I have it down here. Oh yeah, the name of what he was given. Smith's particular type of OCD is religious scrupulosity, which I think that's how you pronounce it. Basically, I mean, Cody, I don't know if you've ever heard of that before today, but it's basically, I mean, I don't know if you can explain it better than what I could.
Yeah, so basically, from what I understood, it was again like I feel like Joel A. Erickson definitely talks about it a little bit better, but basically, I think you kind of summed it up in a way. I'm trying to find exactly how he described it here in this article. Again, don't want to get on everything, but basically, the idea of
Ibogaine is the word. Ibogaine was the medication he took.
yeah, okay, so So basically, yeah, like you said, just so meticulous in like everything that he did, was going to result in, like you said, like the wrath of God almost. Like, it was to that point where he was thinking and it just was so compulsive where it's like no matter what he did, it felt like it was almost going to be inevitably bad, like
Yeah.
that's how I've understood it. Again, I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but that's kind of how I've understood it sort of
Yeah.
described there. And again, just think about that, like the war that's just going on in the mind there, where it's like you can't even do like normal daily functions without be worrying about this and stressed about this and getting to the point where in this article, obviously you talked about where he was mentally and in addition to what you said, he also said, I'm going to retire after this year, right? He was to that point where it was so overwhelming and so all consuming that's all he could focus on, right? And he actually said in this article, I was physically present, but I was nowhere to be found, right? So there was
Yep.
so much going on behind the scenes with him, and so that just really took over everything, right? Where and it's it's a good reminder to us all that at the end of the day, these guys, outside of what they do for the team, they're people, they're humans, right? And so when you see this, you're just like, man, Braden Smith, the human, that was the best thing for him to do is take that time away, go to, like you said, rehabilitation. I think it was something like 40 days or so that
Yeah.
he
The 48 days.
48 days. So he was in rehab for a while. And, you
And
know,
at first, that wasn't even a thing. Like at first, they didn't even know like that was what they were gonna have to do. I
yeah,
think they said like that he started that in like January.
yeah,
So that's the crazy part is it's not even he didn't even get it during the season. Like he thought that stepping away and trying to fix things and getting tested was what was going to help, but it got to a point where Braden Smith's wife said that she didn't even trust Braden around their own child,
right,
like alone by himself, because she thought that because of how obsessive compulsive he had become, if the baby would have needed something to be done, if something would have happened, she didn't feel confident in his cognitive ability to be able to do something in that situation.
yeah,
So if his child would have been like it would have been in danger. She was that afraid of how bad his condition was that he would not have done what was necessary to fix it. I mean, and that is telling you something about just how much of a grasp this has. And I think another thing too, from a religious perspective, I know some people don't care, but the other thing too is, if you are a religious person, like which Braden and his family is, there's always been the thing, you turn away from the religion, but then there's times you grasp onto it too much. And that's basically what this OCD was about, was just him grasping onto faith so hard that, like you said, Cody, like everything felt like a sin to him. Like
right,
no matter what he did, all this stuff. And his wife said that he saw compulsions that he was doing on the field during warm-ups and practices and stuff. Braden couldn't sit in a dark room in meetings and for film and stuff because he was incapable of not being able to be in his own head during that time. And so to end it with what's happening now. So Braden took the psychedelics, got the other medication that he needed, got the therapy. He's currently doing therapy right now, and they retested him. And he says that he feels like his brain has kind of reset itself a little bit. He says that right now, of the 40 different signs of OCD, he now has 12 of them, which is much, much lower. They said instead of a severe case of OCD, he's got now a mild case of OCD. So Braden Smith is still dealing with this OCD. I mean, a lot of folks have OCD in today's world. It may not be as apparent in some others, but even for Braden, even if he has a few things that he's dealing with now, isn't nearly as bad as what it was when this all started happening. And now he feels like he's able to, like, it's not controlling him at this point, which is the ultimate great point of this. Again, Cody, we thought all, like, when he left, and from that moment until, a few weeks ago when we saw that his contract was being, they were reworking his contract a little bit. The whole time we were thinking, like, what is the future for Braden Smith? Is he going to retire? Is he going to get cut? Is he coming back? Who knows? Courtney did say that Braden never wanted to leave the game. He was always there for his brothers as best as he could be. But again, he was just not mentally available during that stuff. And especially in this line of work in football, Cody, if you're not mentally into the sport, then you're going to definitely get hurt because it's such a physical game. And if you're not capable of being fully intact for it, then yeah, you definitely need to step back from it. But I mean, yeah, like you said at the beginning, man, it is we have to remember that these guys are human beings. We talked about it, what's the future going to be for Braden? Even we thought about, what are the odds that, the Colts just move on from him? But, it comes back and you're just like, wow. I mean, you never could have imagined that it was something so severe to the point where, he was battling his own inner demons like that. And shout out to the Colts too for, not doing what some other teams might have done, which is, just they might have cut him, or they might have said, we'll let you do what you got to do, but we're not associating ourselves with it. The Colts could have done a lot of different things, but they walk the walk with, an organization that operates with class. And it's just great to see Braden Smith back to being more of the Braden Smith we know.
Yeah, it's a sobering reminder, man, that there's so many more things that are so much more important than this game that we love. Like so many more things, and I'm so glad that Braden has got the help that he needs. And again, it's a process, like you said. He's still working through things, but as a religious man myself, it's something that I definitely can, in some level, sympathize with Derek when it comes to just that battle, right? Because as someone who claims like to follow Jesus, I'm a pastor, like all this stuff, like you see that, and I totally can understand how you can get to that point, with you see all of the ways you fall short. Like, I do, I'll be the first to admit that, but just very glad, all to say, very glad that he's been able to find whatever he needs, the medication, the support, the peace. That's the biggest thing, the peace of mind for Braden Smith. That is what is so important. And I'm so grateful that, they were able to catch it when they did, and, be able to help him out in the ways he needed to be helped out, because beyond just being a right tackle, like, I'm just glad that Braden Smith, the human, he is in a much better place. And, you're never going to fully get there. You're always going to have stuff. Everybody has their own crap. Everybody has their stuff they struggle with, man. And so, I'm just glad that he's able to have that support. And, shout out to his wife, Courtney, shout out to the Colts, shout out to just everybody in his corner. Like, obviously we're in his corner, but the people who know him, just so grateful that he has that support, that he felt like he could do that. He could step away. He could have that support of those people, of the organization. It's a great, it's a hard story to read, but it's a great ending. And I'm just so glad that despite the struggle, that Braden is able to now come out of it on the other side, and being at a place now where he feels like he can come back and play the game that he loves, right? Because it is a game, and there, like I said, there's a lot of things that are very much more important than a game. And I'm glad that Braden Smith is able to figure those things out, because he's been a great guy obviously on the field, but a great man in the locker room, and a man of God as well. So I'm just hopeful that he continues on that right path and just continues to progress in those ways and continues to work through it, man. I mean, I think that's just the thing. Like, he's going to have to just continue to do that, and just thankful that he's at a good place now.
Yeah, that's basically it, man. You're right. It is just a game at the end of the day, and it's good to see the human of Braden Smith has, finally started to take a corner. And yeah, I mean, everyone's got their own battles that they're dealing with. And obviously, Braden had a tough one. And I mean,
And
shout
continues
out
to have a
to,
tough one, like he's continuing, like he's
yeah,
continuing to battle and
oh,
just
yeah.
yeah, like you
At
said.
least the good thing is it doesn't control him anymore the way that it used to. And, that's a great thing too, because a lot of times you feel like it's so overwhelming, you don't know where to start and you don't know how to get through so many different things. But now, with a clearer mind and understanding of what he has now, he can now get more concentrated help and be able to, tackle things in a more narrow direction, because now he knows what he's going to be able to do. And shout out to, in this article, Braden talked about saying that there was another Colts teammate that also had something very similar to this. Didn't mention who it was, but definitely interesting to say the least that he's not the first one that has dealt with something like this. But yeah, that's really going to be it here, guys. Shout out to Joel Erickson. Shout out to the Smith family for allowing Colts Nation to understand, what had happened with Braden. And we're glad that he was able to tell his story and, share some insight as to what happened. So thank
Yeah,
you,
and
Braden. Thank you to Joel and all the others.
seriously, and just so glad now that Braden feels like he can be the husband he needs to be. He can be the father that he needs to be. Like those things matter so much. And I'm just so grateful that he's now in a place where he can do that. So it just really touches your heart there.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, how you feel about this news and the article. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.